Welcome to a deep dive that honestly looks less like a reading list and much more like a map of the entire universe of social and cognitive theory.
It's a huge stack.
It's staggering. The documents you've provided cover everything from, the bedrock of classical sociology like Irving Goffman, all the way up to concepts that sound like they're pulled from a sci-fi novel.
Oh, absolutely. Magical nanoswarms, for one.
And my personal favorite, allegorical phenomenology of sociological plasma physics.
Right. And what this really represents is a quest for comprehensive systems integration. The goal here isn't to just study these fields, psychology, sociology, physics, separately.
No.
It's to find the actual mechanisms, the laws that connect all of them.
Yeah.
It's an act of theoretical map making, really.
And the sources themselves are mostly research notes, deep dive files that suggest this massive ongoing inquiry across really specialized fields. The theme connecting it all is what we're calling exploratory eclecticism.
Which is just a willingness to pull knowledge from absolutely anywhere, right?
Exactly. If it helps build a unified theory of mind and society, it's in.
So our mission for you is to unpack this whole thing. We're going to organize it into three big thematic groups: the inner self, the social system, and then the emergent future.
If you're looking to get up to speed on how modern theory is trying to connect the dots between the brain and society, this is where we're going to start digging.
Okay, let's get into it.
So we have to start with the foundational question, right? How do we understand ourselves? This first pile of readings is all about that, the bedrock of self-understanding.
It is, and it starts with the classic frameworks: depth psychology and archetypal symbolism.
The basics.
These are the tools for understanding our internal landscape, the unconscious drives, symbols, the big human stories we all share. And from there, it moves into psychodynamic theories.
Which is more about mapping our relationships, how our past affects us now.
Exactly, our relational patterns. But the next file is the real tell.
Psychosynthesis and personal integration.
Yes. That file highlights the goal. It isn't just about analysis.
It's about building something.
It's a commitment to actually actualizing the self. Psychosynthesis tells you the goal isn't just to find the psychological fault lines. It's to build a cohesive, integrated person. It's the therapeutic goal baked right in.
And what's so fascinating is how quickly the material pivots from that abstract subjective goal to hard biology.
Right. It's not enough to talk about it. You have to find where it lives.
The documents immediately start looking for a biological address for these ideas. We're talking files on the default mode network,
Yeah.
the DMN and the hippocampus.
Well, the modern thinking is that the abstract stuff has to have biological hardware. Think of it this way. Depth psychology is the operating system, the stories we run on. The DMN is the hardware.
Yeah.
It's the network in your brain that's active during internal reflection. When you're thinking about yourself, planning. When your mind is wandering, that's your DMN.
So the insight here is that the DMN is the biological place where that archetypal exploration happens.
That's the connection they're making. And the hippocampus.
Memory.
Central to memory retrieval and spatial mapping. You can't have an integrated self in the present if you can't accurately map your past. The documents are trying to find the physical coordinates of the self.
And that desire leads to some really ambitious, holistic concepts. We see files called brainscapes, the slightly funny Brian maps of the body.
I saw that one.
And then these highly abstract ideas like a holographic mind and even a heart-mind matrix.
What's so interesting there is the move toward a holistic, maybe even non-local view of consciousness. The holographic mind idea suggests that consciousness isn't just in one spot.
That the information is distributed everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The entirety of the self-information is somehow contained in every part. What the listener is trying to do is build a fully mapped model of the internal subject, connecting everything. There's even a file called Conjectural Relationships between brain maps and reflexive environmental gestalt.
So the goal of this whole first segment is to define a unified, integrated individual who can act in the world.
Right. And that unified self needs a world to act in. Which leads us straight to segment 2. The social system.
The collective.
The integrated self has to interact with structure. We've defined the internal subject, and now we need to define their power and their limits within the group.
And this is where the sociological heavy hitters come in.
Yeah.
You have to have this foundation to ground all the speculation that comes later.
You absolutely do. You have to start with the classics. The sources point right to Irving Goffman.
Famous for his dramaturgical analysis.
The idea that social life is a stage. We're all managing impressions, playing roles to present a certain face to the world.
I think most people get that instinctively. You act one way in a job interview, another way at home. That's dramaturgy.
It is, and that explains how we interact. But then you get Giddens, modernity and self-identity, which looks at why identity is so fluid now.
Because modern society forces us to constantly reconstruct who we are.
It becomes a project. Your identity isn't a fixed thing, it's something you're always working on.
And then the shift to the architects of critical thought. Foucault, Latour, and Bruno. This feels like a big step.
It is, because their work moves us from just observing social roles to analyzing deep power structures. And crucially, understanding how non-human things, technology, buildings, documents, also have agency. They shape our reality.
And that brings us to the key file that ties all of this together.
Yeah.
Define agency.
Yes.
If you're studying Goffman, Giddens, and Foucault, why is defining agency so central?
Because it's the pivot point. It's the fundamental tension between the power of the individual we just mapped and the power of the system. Who or what gets to act in the world, and what are the limits? That's the question you have to answer before you do anything else.
And once that foundation is set, the documents push right into application. We see files on urban sociology, community building.
And that specific one, contemporary social architecture.
This shows the listener isn't just reading theory. They're looking for blueprints.
They want to apply Goffman to design better cities, better communities. But the thinking doesn't stop at physical architecture. It goes purely theoretical.
Which brings us back to that title we mentioned, Allegorical Phenomenology of Sociological Plasma Physics.
It's a massive conceptual leap, I know.
What are they trying to do by treating society like plasma?
Well, if you connect it to the bigger picture, it's about treating society not as a set of fixed rules or structures, but as a dynamic, energetic system, like plasma.
Okay, so plasma is one of the states of matter. It's highly energized, chaotic.
Exactly. It's responsive to fields. It's always moving. The analogy suggests social realities aren't fixed like a solid, but are dynamic and responsive, like a field of energized particles.
So it's a move toward a more complex systems theory.
A very sophisticated one. Treating social fields like they're quantifiable forces that can be modeled, maybe even influenced, like a physicist models a magnetic field.
And that ambition is right there in the file. Futuristic social work, it raises a huge question, doesn't it? If society is a complex system like this, what are the limits of actually designing social outcomes?
And what are the new methods? That sets us up perfectly for the final synthesis. We've defined the self, put the self in this dynamic social plasma.
And now we move beyond social science. This is where it gets really interesting.
This is the ultimate act of exploratory eclecticism. We're moving into the language of physics, math, futurism, trying to find the universal laws that govern everything we've just talked about.
There's a clear search for nonlinear dynamics. The files focus on complexity and time, like chaos theory and psychological emergence.
Right, and chaos theory isn't about randomness. It's about systems that are super sensitive to initial conditions, the butterfly effect.
So a small personal change, a psychological emergence, could lead to huge, unpredictable social outcomes.
That's the idea. That's how the integrated self from segment 1 interacts with the social system from segment 2.
And the language gets so mathematical here. Concepts like Cantor sets, chronoresonant intercalation, chronosynthesis, and these energy terms like koilons and dynamite, volt. This is a lot of jargon.
It is, but let's look at their function. A Cantor set, for instance, is related to fractal geometry. It models structures that look similar whether you zoom way in to the mind or zoom way out to society.
So they're looking for self-similar laws that work across all scales.
That's the goal. And the time-related terms like chronosynthesis, they imply that time itself isn't a fixed line. It's a dynamic structure that can be layered, synthesized.
Suggesting the past, present, and future might all influence each other in nonlinear ways.
These are enormous concepts. It's a serious attempt to build a grand unified theory of everything psychological and sociological, all operating under what they call advanced information fields.
And for this synthesis to be complete, it has to include the future agency. It has to include AI.
It does. We see documents focused on autosuggestion for AI, self-hypnosis, and collaborative human-eye super teams.
This suggests a future where agency isn't just human anymore. It's shared or hybrid.
And it demands new ways of managing the self that span both biological and silicon minds. I mean, autosuggestion for AI self-hypnosis.
That's fascinating. It suggests that AI systems will also need their own internal integration, just like the human self we started with.
Precisely. They're modeling the AI not as a tool, but as a subject that needs its own development. And to tie the whole matrix together, you get the most interdisciplinary concepts of all, applications of the panpsychic connectome and neuromorphic sociolotomy.
Panpsychism. The idea that consciousness is a fundamental feature of the universe, not just in brains.
Yes. And the panpsychic connectome is the attempt to merge that philosophy with real neuroscience. The idea that the connectivity we see in the brain's connectome might be reflected in a larger conscious societal network.
That's the peak of the mountain, unifying the mind's architecture with the physics of society.
And finally, to show just how far out they're pushing the boundary, we come back to that file, Future Possibilities and Evolution via Magical Nanoswarms.
It really is the perfect bookend.
It is. If social structures are like plasma and agency is shared with AI, then self-organizing tech, the nanoswarms, become the inevitable next step for collective evolution. It's the ultimate expression of that exploratory eclecticism.
So, after all that, what does this stack of material mean for you, the person trying to learn from it?
I think we've traced a really clear journey.
Yeah. We started by mapping the individual mind. Then we placed that mind inside these dynamic, almost plasma-like social systems. And finally, we projected both onto these abstract, futuristic models from physics and AI.
And the principle connecting Goffman's dramaturgy to chaos theory is just that radical willingness to pull from any field, biology, math, philosophy, to get a complete picture. The real value of this deep dive is seeing the interconnectivity of all knowledge.
Whether you're prepping for a complex meeting or you're just genuinely curious, understanding how a concept like Gestalt or advanced information fields can bridge these incredibly different domains, that's essential for navigating modern problems.
We touched on the concept of combinatorial subjectivities, the idea that your identity is a mashup of everything you interact with, biological, social, and technological.
Right.
So here's the thought to leave you with. If the future self is defined by that combination of influences, what does the pursuit of psychosynthesis and personal integration even look like when the self is no longer a fixed entity, but is fundamentally emergent, collaborative, and maybe even non-local? That's something to mull over.